enable us to do a lot of things that were difficult before, we couldn't do before. But of course, there's always going to be that side where if people use it incorrectly, it can have a lot of damage on
100%.
society. So especially as like with Deepfakes, there's so many things have come out of that. I think it's going to be interesting how the laws around AI come into place. I think there's always going to be a lag. So unfortunately, it tends to be until something really bad happens, then the laws are really implemented and kind of adhered to.
100%.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're looking after yourselves. Yes, we're back. It's been on hiatus. We've had events, different podcast episodes, different celebrations, but we're back. The Student Guide is back to discuss all these amazing topics with amazing guest speakers. As you know, we bring on a new guest speaker to discuss a topic that is relevant to you, whether this is through the lens of entrepreneurship, whether this is through representation, whether this is even just discussing your favorite themes and things like that. We're here to address all of that with the Student Guide. Yes, we've got an amazing guest speaker doing amazing work. I don't want to spoil the surprise, so instead I'm going to hand over to them. Afiba, could we know a bit more about you, what you do? Just tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Afiba. I work as a data scientist at PwC. And I guess a little bit of background on me is I'm from London and Newcastle, mainly Newcastle, although you probably couldn't tell from my accent. But I've always really loved maths in school. I really like thinking about how to solve a problem logically. So I ended up doing a maths degree at the University of Leeds, and that's where I was kind of first introduced to programming and really liked the applied maths modules as well. So during my second year of uni, after many applications, I managed to get some internship at S&P Global as a market intelligence intern. And that was kind of my first exposure into data science in the real world. And I kind of really got to see the impact it can have on decision making. And I think that's kind of where I realized I wanted to be a creator of tech and not a consumer alone. So I went back into my third year of university, kind of applying for data science roles, and managed to get a role at PwC as a data scientist, where I've only been working in natural language processing, which is an area of AI that enables kind of machines to interpret and generate human language. So just been working in data science since.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I guess, random question. Do you have a favourite maths equation?
Maths equation?
Yeah, favourite maths equation.
Do you know what? All the really complex ones I learned at uni, I've forgotten. One I will never forget is Pythagoras, because everyone always says it's not useful. And to be fair, I haven't used it since. But then again, I'm not an engineer.
Exactly. So... That is true. That is fair. That's a good one. We're going to dive straight in with the first question, which is you spoke about your internship and how it sort of like ignited this passion for you for data science. We'd like to know a bit more about that, particularly because within us as a team, but also in different podcasts that we do under Pick Up the Mic, we do talk about like how internships and placements are such a great way to sort of figure out what you want to do after you graduate. Because like most people, myself included, you sometimes will be at university, like you said, you'll be in your second year. Maybe you liked one thing and then you do an internship, you find out you actually like something else, or maybe you'll just be like, I don't actually know what I want to do when I graduate. So how, essentially this question is, how could you share how your internship essentially ignited your passion for data science, leading to you to sort of specialize in natural language processing at PwC?
Yeah, so my summer internship at S&P Global, so I worked as a market intelligence intern, and that was in their oil and gas division. And my task was partly looking at competitors, analysing what they were doing, and data analysis, so using Power BI and Excel. But my manager at the time, she saw that I knew programming from uni, so I'd done some Python R looking at problem solving and then also the stats as well. So our main task was actually to build a trend prediction model, and that was based on survey data. So predicting, so based on client responses in a survey, predicting whether they're more likely to remain as a client or to leave. And machine learning was new to the department at the time, and it was completely new to me. So I was kind of just given free rein to explore, learn, try out different things, and that was really fun and interesting for me. I learned things like data cleaning, model valuation, and also how to convey and present the results of your findings as well, because at the end of the day, it's great being able to kind of extract that data, but the key part is so what do we do with this? So presenting some findings to the wider marketing team. So looked at things like, of course, which clients are predicted to leave and who to pay special attention to. And then also looking at things like how can this impact future revenue if they do leave, and what parts of the customer experience is really contributing to churn, so you can kind of target those areas in advance and mitigate it. So that was a really, really interesting experience. And like you mentioned, because I kind of gained some experience as a data scientist, I was able to go back into third year knowing that I did want to pursue a career in it. So it was really, really good and really beneficial to be able to have that opportunity. So then after that, I gained a graduate role at PwC and started in their digital audit team in the AI sub-team. And that's where I kind of built my foundational knowledge around NLP. So anything to do with like text summarization, speech to text is all in that kind of realm, chatbots, that's what NLP is about. And then still continued as a data scientist and now work in PwC's data intelligence team, mainly working with customer data now.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing. And that's really cool to see how, these guys know we have this thing called Mic Check, where we talk about an interesting fact or figure or story related to the discussion we're having today. And I think it's really key because I guess this Mic Check could even be your own story, because you've shown that like how engaging with that internship sort of like brought you into a new experience. You were able to like test things out. We've always said like when it comes to doing internships, the most important thing is like don't feel that whatever's in your job description is like the be all and end all. Even like regardless of internship, whether it's your like you graduated, you're in a graduate role, like never feel like your job description is all you can ever do within your workplace. And I think it's really key, especially as you mentioned, like if you hadn't gone that extra step, tried something new, like been exposed to a new sort of environment and tried out these like a new sort of, I guess, career path, essentially, you wouldn't have known that you like data science.
Yeah, I didn't even know what it was at the time.
So it's really great to see how that's like influenced your journey. Before we actually go on to the next one, there is an impromptu question that I would like to ask, which is about your internship. What was your favorite part about your internship?
Favorite part about my internship? Honestly, I think my team. I had never been in a corporate environment before. That was my first kind of experience with it. And especially being someone that's more introverted, I was a bit kind of cautious and apprehensive in starting kind of my role, but my team were really, really supportive and really nice. And the big corporate world wasn't as scary as I thought it was. So,
No, thank you. And I think that's so true. Like your team, like in any role is like really what helps you to like, it can make or break a job essentially. Because you can even have like, and I'm not saying this is the case with yourself or with me, but I know like people who have had like worked in like not the best workplaces, like maybe the manager was a bit tough, but because they had like a really great team around them, or even like maybe the workload could get a lot, but when you've got like a really good team that supports you, I know even when I did like my first internship, it was the exact same, that having like a good team that supported you, liked the fact that you were active in trying new things and learning new things about the role and maybe shadowing other people. Having a team that sort of allows you to do that and is actively pushing for you to do that is really 100%. Key. So, thank you very much. We're going to jump to the next question, which is all about, as you mentioned, sort of like churn prediction models. In developing these models and a social listening tool, what are some of the key challenges you faced and how have these projects shaped your approach to data science?
Yeah, so I think there's been the churn prediction tool and social listening tool. I think there's also a couple other ones I've also looked at as well, which I'll briefly mention. So I think kind of my first, I guess, project outside of work, so after the trend prediction model, was looking at a Spotify optimization algorithm. So I really like kind of taking time to make sure playlists kind of flow together nicely. So what I thought would be kind of fun, something else kind of creative to do, and still tech, is to kind of read in all the features kind of in the songs that Spotify does provide that in their API. So things like loudness, tempo, like whether it's a major or minor key. And looked at some algorithms to see, based on the song features, how similar they are, and then reorder the playlist so that similar songs are next to each other, so it flows together nicely. And then there's a social listening tool that you mentioned. So that's something my friend and I developed called Voice, and that enables you to get some insights from YouTube comment sections. And one that I'm starting on now is helping a startup build a chatbot as well. And nice. I think kind of throughout all of these different projects and experiences, some of the challenges that I face with that, I think the first one that I very much remember and still encounter today and always will as a data scientist, is data quality and availability. So it's, I think one of the first things when I was doing my trend prediction project is just getting the right data. So the data that I had initially wasn't enough, probably wasn't the best quality. So I had to kind of talk to different people to get data from kind of more years, kind of more people that have responded to surveys. So that was one thing that I realized, and especially coming from university, especially from my experience in maths, you're kind of given the data already perfect. There's not really much to do with it. You can just start straight implementing any model you want to do with it, whereas that's not the case in the real world at all. So that was something that I learned there as well. And I think as well with data quality, like what do you do with missing values? How do you handle that? Whether a column needs to be encoded, whether it's categorical, you need to encode it into something else. And also a classic problem in trend prediction problem is imbalanced data sets, because hopefully, if your business is doing somewhat well, you should have a lot more customers that are staying than leaving, which means that if you're training a model, the model's going to have more knowledge of what customers who stay, what they look like, what features do they have, than customers who are likely to leave, which can kind of create model bias, which means it can predict the customer will stay more so than customer will leave because it has less knowledge on what a customer that will leave looks like. So learning how to do that, I think some of the simpler kind of approaches is like oversampling, undersampling. So undersampling the majority category and oversampling the minority category. Those are things that I've learned and something that I've also taken in to work. You can't just kind of get straight into data and start putting models on it like you could at uni, because the data is never perfect. And then something else that I learned probably on the social listening tool is the importance of user testing when you're building something. I think especially when you're developing a product yourself, you kind of have developer bias because you know how it works. So you think that, this makes sense to other people because you kind of have the full knowledge of how things should be. But when you have other people test it, they have kind of a little background on what you're doing. It just needs the platform they're using just needs to be easy and make sense to them. So that's been really, really important. I think being able to take that feedback and kind of incorporate it and then build it out and make sure you have a better solution. And also, I think that's something that has been really beneficial with work, because now on my new team, working on building a product, and we do this all the time, kind of do user testing, get feedback from it, improve it more. It's kind of iterative process. And then probably lastly is scalability and optimization. That's something that's huge that I learned a lot on the Voice social listening tool. So on that project, so especially being a data scientist, your main role is to kind of build a model and then extract the insights from it. But especially if you're on a bigger team, you'll probably have machine learning engineers. So their role is to optimize and scale the models that have been built. You have data engineers, and their job is to kind of manage the data pipelines for collecting, storing, and processing data. So people have different roles, and you kind of focus on what it is you do as a data scientist. But especially if you're in a small team or you're building something yourself, you have to do everything, essentially. And so I learned a lot of especially what a machine learning engineer would do in terms of scaling and optimizing, because it's not enough to just build a model and it works locally, great, fantastic. But when you go to host it somewhere for everyone else to try and use, it breaks in like 5 minutes. So a lot of things about kind of memory intensive processes, kind of different methods and how to handle that, how to make something run a bit faster. Because what might take a couple minutes on my local, when I'm sharing servers with other people, might take like 2 hours to run. And that's not a great user experience. So yeah, that was a really interesting process in kind of learning that. And it's something, again, that's come up at work. So when building things, trying to build them in a way that's optimized, and because no one as a user wants to take 2 hours to click a button. So yeah, it's something that's really important. I think, especially even if you do have a bigger team where you have machine learning engineers and data engineers and there are defined roles, having knowledge of those areas I found is really, really important, because it means as a data scientist, you can begin building your model in a way that's efficient, which means it becomes easier to like deploy it and I guess productionize it. So just having those kind of skill sets and ideas in mind has, been really beneficial.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, just to like touch on some of the points you mentioned, I think one key thing from what you said is people don't actually think about like, I guess, the different aspects of where data science can come into. Because like you said, like to me, when you said that like with Spotify, like creating to make sure that the songs like flow, that was something that I like never thought data science would be linked to, but it's really cool that, you know, from what you said, that it does. So essentially what you're saying is anyone who's watching or listening, if they're looking for someone to help them perfect their playlist, they should get in touch with you.
I mean, the code is on GitHub. It was a while ago. It's a bit clunky, but it's available.
Okay. But no, it's so cool to see that like the different applications of stuff. And I think particularly as you mentioned, like through the different projects you've worked on and the challenges that you've faced, that there is such like a wide variety of like areas that data science covers, and having these different models that can help support with not only the delivery of different projects, but also to improve that customer experience. Because as you mentioned, even from like entrepreneurship, like mindset, like one of the things that I learned from my master's was people were saying, oh yes, as a business owner, you tend to get stuck in your ways, because even if you identify, like, I don't know, if you're a gamer and you're creating like a gaming product, you may think that you relate to your target audience because maybe you're targeting, I don't know, someone the similar age group as you and all of this stuff. But you also need to remember that not every person that you're targeting towards is going to be thinking the same way, working the same way, using the product the same way. So as you mentioned, like having those different pools, a wide variety of people, having these different models to make predictions is so important, because it's when you've like get stuck in this like sense of thinking of, no, you know, I know the customer, I'm the customer myself, like I know what I don't like, I know what I do like. When you get stuck in those ways, that's when like things basically like, I don't know, essentially the business doesn't improve and you get sort of like things get stagnant. So yeah. I do want to ask, before we go on to the next question, what is your favorite so as I mentioned, like the Spotify optimization is really cool. So I would like to know if you've got like a personal favorite of where data science is used that people wouldn't necessarily think, oh, this is how data science influences this.
I think because I am a bit advocate for music, and you probably, this is probably definitely known by people, but just I think the personalization, I think that's something that's really interesting to me. And I think particularly with Spotify, because I love music, just like how data can be used to really create an experience that's personal to you and unique to you. And that's all done by data science. So kind of learning on what you click on, how long you listen to a song to, whether you add it to your playlist or not, whether that will positively affects a model or negatively affects a model? Do you listen to it for 2 seconds and move on to the next one? Is that a negative to the model? Do you add it to a playlist or do you share it with someone? Is that positive? So yeah, machine learning is kind of in all those aspects. And even now, I think they've released, I think it's only available in the UK, but they released kind of an AI playlist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So again, you get that Gen AI aspect into there as well. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And like you said, with the, especially with the like Spotify AI, I've been using it and like it is really interesting, as you mentioned, because there are songs that maybe I've never listened to that artist before, I've never followed that artist, but there's when it does like, oh yeah, based on the fact that you listen to this artist a lot, we're going to recommend some songs that we think you would like. There are songs that, you know, some with everything that you might not necessarily like, or you might not feel like you want to listen to in the moment. But like you said, there are a lot of songs that I'm just like, oh wow, this is really cool. Like, I wonder who this artist is. Let me like listen to them and look into it. And then you start to see, as you mentioned, like the more that I've used it, the more that tailoring, and even I think there's a thing on Spotify, I don't know if it's to do with the AI, but now they've got like a mood set. So sort of like based on the time you use Spotify, it knows, oh, you like to listen to these types of songs at these moments. So yeah, to even just see that is so cool. And yeah, I guess the last point to say would be, as you mentioned with the generally just the personalization. There we go. Spotify Wrapped is like is a clear example of having that personalized data shown to you, and it's something that everyone likes. Again, a lot of people have sort of like, other companies have tried to copy and do their own like Spotify Wrapped. But yeah, it is really cool because it's just like, okay, you know, you've been listening to songs for the last 365 days. Let's show you what that looks like, and the way that it, like the graphics that it uses, and even like my manager at work, like always, sometimes like last year when it was coming to Spotify Wrapped, she was joking because she was just like, I don't know how, but like I don't even listen to Drake that much, but Drake always is appearing on my Spotify Wrapped. So even like jokes like that, like joking with friends or colleagues and saying like, oh, you know, I wonder who's going to be there. It's so cool to see how your data has been like personalized in the overall experience.
And I think it even kind of goes, it's really interesting. It's why kind of I wanted to learn a bit more about the customer space as well, because you can even think about, say, even if you don't have much data points at the time, maybe you're a new user to Spotify, based on what you're listening to, even though there's not many of it, you can still map those data points to people that are like you and what they like, and maybe you'll like the same thing. So I think that's really interesting. And then also, I guess, outside of the platform itself, it also plays into marketing. So if, say, I haven't been on Spotify for like, or just any kind of been to any business for like 3 months or so, if you recommend me, if you give me like an offer or discount, is it worth giving me that discount? Am I going to become a more high value customer because of it? Because at the end of the day, you're kind of cutting your profit by giving me that discount.
That's true.
And that's something businesses also look at as well, whether they can optimize advertising as well. So is it worth me giving this customer this discount, or this type of customer this discount, and whether it will actually lead to them spending more money in the future. Yeah. No,
100%. And even like you were talking about with that personalization, like I think the clearest example of it is with, like you mentioned, with marketing, because don't ask me how to do it, I've forgotten. But I know I saw a video on Instagram where someone was talking about like Google, how it like personalizes you. So based on your Google searches, the things you now watch on YouTube, because now obviously Google owns YouTube, so that's included as well. But based on all your searches, the things you like, the links you click on, the articles you read, the stuff you watch on YouTube, it comes up with like a sort of like who it thinks you are. And you can like, I think it's in your like settings, it's like there's a personalization thing, but you can check and see. And like I think after watching that video I did, and it was just like, yeah, it got my age, like the age bracket was right, my interests in gaming and like Marvel and TV shows and this, even like podcasting stuff and stuff. Like all of this like key information is stuff that you don't sometimes always think about as a consumer when you're just like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna like search and stuff. I know for my master's, like the biggest thing, we had like a module on the psychology of like marketing. So it was looking at like consumer behavior. That's the word. So it was looking at how like businesses market to consumers, and like my professor was saying like, oh, she doesn't accept cookies because she's just like,
yeah, no, 100% decline all the time.
Honestly, and she said like people are just like, oh, it's cool or it's fine, but she said like that's when you're like, oh, you're scrolling, I don't know, through, maybe you're watching something on YouTube or maybe you're scrolling through like a website and you see a pop up for something that you're just like, I don't
How did you
like,
know?
yeah, how did you know? How did you know I was thinking about this? But yeah, people were joking that maybe your phone's listening into you or something, but it's not that. It's like you said, like the websites you go on, the cookies you accept.
All interlinked. People buy data. It's scary, but so fascinating at the same time. It's why I wanted to enter the field as well. I think there's a documentary on YouTube, I forgot what it's called, but it looks into all of that.
Okay.
It's people that work in tech industry. And of course, like I decline cookies. Of course, if you say yes, it would help my job make it a lot easier. But I think it's why as we become kind of more tech enabled, it's data privacy is so important, because if it's in the wrong hands, then yikes.
Yeah, honestly, no, it's so true. And we've seen examples of that throughout, like, particularly, I guess the biggest one to date was obviously like all the stuff that was happening with like Brexit and the information that was coming out from that. Obviously, like things like GDPR came out because of this, and because my mum works in that like information governance space.
Okay.
I know like literally what you're saying, like how like even like people think simple things of like, oh, I don't know, like going out, recording a video in public or stuff like that. People don't know about how much, like as an individual, you can ensure that your data is protected and like ask for things to be removed, whether you've, like especially if your consent is not given, you haven't agreed to that. But yeah, I think as you mentioned, like as we get into a more technologically advanced society, things like data protection and specifically around sort of like making sure that the way things are marketed or the way that information is given to individuals is done in like a safe and accurate and informative way will be really key. One thing before we go on to the next question is we've been talking about tech and I haven't even asked you what your favorite piece of tech is.
Favorite piece of tech? Oh, if we're talking language wise, Python, because it's, well, I've already kind of worked with kind of Python, R, and PySpark, kind of the typical ones as a data scientist. But Python just easier to read, understand. It's not. I feel like you can, if I gave you some Python code, you would be able to kind of get an idea of what it does. Some other languages the functions aren't super clear of what they do. And in terms of kind of, I guess, tech piece wise, the classic one of GPT. It just makes my life so much easier. It's like the new Stack Overflow. I can just ask, if I want to write this, I want to write in this way. It's just a lot easier. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely.
What's yours?
Oh, good question. It's funny that you mentioned like language, like tech language, because I only used it once in my first year, but I did use R, and like you said, did it like if like even now definitely couldn't do it, but even at the time like we were doing it and I was just like I'm not. They were just just put this in, and I was just like I don't get this. I'm not getting this. But I think like piece of tech, I do think as you mentioned like chat is really good. It is really nice to like have something that you can not only ask information, but you can also sometimes like help to clarify things because I know particularly like from people that I know that English isn't their first language. They said sometimes when you write something, it can like sometimes they're concerned. Well, even in general, even if English is your first language, like I know sometimes I might write an email and I feel like, oh, it's a bit blunt. It almost seems like a bit harsh, but I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to like, this is how I would say it if we were in person. And particularly with like people saying that text, and I think there's like a funny Key and Peele sketch about it of like where reading something over text, you will put, even if like the person puts like fun, like, and that's why emojis are so important because if you just read like one sentence, I don't know, you might say, oh, like, I'm really upset with you. And the person might just be saying it as a joke. But you might read that and be like, oh my gosh, like, why are you upset with me? Get really annoyed. So yeah, I think having chat is like a good way to like reword like emails and to like write stuff. I do, and I think this is definitely something which I'm just checking. I do not have it as a question, but I definitely think we should talk about AI. But yeah, I do think that chat, like, the way some people use chat, particularly like for my previous job, I was working at my university to help them, like helping other students to apply for placements. And I know that was the big like concern because students were using it to write their CVs and cover letters, to the point where some students wouldn't change, like where it would say like input your name, they would submit the cover letter with input your name. So even like they were just like, oh, we know, we can tell like, oh, this person didn't write their CV, or this person like clearly was using chat to like just write everything and submitted it, didn't really care. Mental health is really important to us at Pick Up the Mic, and we love to share resources that can support your mental health. And that's why we are so glad to have today's sponsor. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30. Yeah, I think chat is really cool because you can use it. Yeah, so there is the concern of like, will people use it in the right way? Will people make sure that if they're writing for a CV or a cover letter or applications? I will say, personally, I have used it in that scenario, but I always I've got a bank. So every CV, cover letter or funding application I write, I keep it so I can just sort of like tailor it to meet whatever this thing is, and then I can just like work on it like that. So I do think it's genuinely chat is good to have that, particularly like if you struggle with like, I don't know, conveying how you feel and stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, I'm a gamer, so I'm gonna have to drop. My favorite piece of text is my Xbox, because I love Xbox. I've repeatedly said if Xbox ever want to sponsor the podcast, hit me up. Always looking for a new sponsor. So, but yeah, I'd say that. But if I had to pick another one, or another two, there are two AI ones that we're using, and I think it isn't the next question, but I think going into AI will be really good to discuss because obviously, you've got experience in that field as well. And yeah, the two that we use are, funnily enough, two people that we're part of their affiliate program. So one of them is called Opus Clip AI. So for anyone who's like, you follow our page or you follow myself on LinkedIn or my Instagram page, you will see that like those short, like maybe 1 minute, 30 second, like bits of the episode that I post, which has like, I don't know, like it's got like these cool captions. Maybe it's got like some like changing angles from going from split screen to full screen to all of this stuff, is through Opus. So Opus works as turning long form content into shorter form content. So it started out as just being for like 30 seconds. Like I think it was like from obviously like no one's gonna look for like 0 seconds, but 0 seconds to max like 3 minutes, and it could turn it into like a reel, or you could use it for YouTube Shorts or for TikTok. And then it's now like adjusted itself so you can now, so they're in the beta stage. I think they might have like finished it, but the way it was working is now you could do like, I don't know, a 1 hour or 45 minute thing. You could put it through Opus and turn it into like a 5 or 10 minute clip. And now they've also added things like, so it does auto captions for you as well. It's got this cool, and maybe I'll show like some videos of like our own Opus field or videos they've got on their website, because it's got like a social media like clip rate. Like it does a rating of it, so it says like, oh, based on like the hook, based on what you're saying, this is how. Now it's not like accurate in the sense of like, oh, if it gives it like an A, or it gives it a score like a 19 out of 100, it means that that's going to be like your clip is guaranteed to be successful. It says, based on what you're saying in this clip, it's likely that loads of people will watch it, but it's not guaranteeing that like your video will do well on every platform.
100%.
Nothing's 100%, exactly. But yeah, it's just so good to have something, it's particularly for us, like we're a small team and like we don't always have the time to like turn this content into short stuff. It's really great. So we'll put the link in the description of this video. But yeah, if you do want to check it out, you can check out our referral link. You get like a discount on your first paying membership. And then the other one is like Descript. So Descript is a software that you can use for like loads of different things. You can use it to like record like podcasts. You can use it to record like live content. So if you're sharing a screen, if you just want to do an audio podcast, if you want to do like a camera one similar to this, you can use Descript to record it. It auto transcribes what you're saying, which is really cool. So you can then like break it. So with Opus, it will just group everyone as like one person and like keep the text file as like one person. With Descript, based on like the audio clips and like the audio levels and like the way people are speaking, it will differentiate between like, if you tell it, oh, there are like 3 speakers on this thing, or even like with this, if I tell it there are 2 speakers on it, it will look throughout the whole video and say, okay, we're going to give you some clips, tell us who are speaking at these like 4 different points, and then I'll say, okay, this is Jeffrey, this is Afiba, this is Jeffrey, this is Afiba. And then it'll be like, cool, this is what we think, we've like auto-transcribed, this is what we think they're saying, this is what we think, like this is who we think is speaking. Go ahead and like let us know if we've made any mistakes, adjust it, you can edit it out. You can video edit with Descript, so it's like really easy. But the cool, linking it back to AI and what this question is going to be about, is you can then use it to sort of like find good clips. So they have like their own version to create like short form content of, you say like find, so it's called like find good clips, but you can tailor it so it can be like find 10 good clips in this episode that you think are really interesting. They should be around like 50 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes long, and then it will go through like the whole video. It will look through the script and base what's being said, and then it will just be like, okay, cool, these are all the clips we found. Let us know if you want to like edit these a bit more. But yeah, both are really good for essentially that, like turning longer form content into shorter. But it's also really good to like have something that can like auto transcribe your like what you're saying, because particularly like if you're not reading from a script, if things aren't scripted, if you have like impromptu things that maybe happen throughout the episode, particularly like for like I edit the episodes that we record ourselves, and I know, as sort of seen with today, we do get like impromptu questions, so stuff like this having it is really good. So
you really see how AI can really beat anything.
Honestly, it's so true. And even like with Opus, I forgot to say, they've now added that you can have like, so originally they had like AI stock, so you could, based on the transcript, you could ask it to like put AI, it's like stock images in there. But now they've added an image creator. So if you, based on what you're saying, you could say, oh, actually, I don't know, like listen to this conversation, and then at certain parts, like put, I don't know, like if we're talking about a castle, show an AI image of a castle. It's still in its beta stage, so it's not like perfect, but where it could go is really interesting, because it means that like instead of, I don't know, having to put the video through like another AI software, or using like something like Midjourney to create an AI image, and then putting that in a video through another software, you can literally just like put it all through Opus, and then Opus will just literally like create it for you. So those would be like my 3 favorite pieces of software. But yeah, talking about AI, I think it'll be really interesting to get your opinion on AI, because I know particularly for certain industries, particularly I know for people in the creative industries, they are concerned about it, because they say, like, if you're a graphic designer, like I said, even I've mentioned it before, like our logo was made by AI art. People say, oh, with the use of AI, it means that like certain jobs will essentially be like lost, or like revenue won't be going to them, because people will be like, I can pay for a software which is much cheaper than a graphic designer or a video editor to do this content or this work for me. So I would love to get your opinion on what you think. How do you feel, like what is your opinion on AI, and how do you feel in the future like things will go with AI?
I think with any change, it's always scary initially. And it's also really interesting. I think with regards to jobs, I think jobs will, of course, evolve as they always do. I think I guess before we even had video creation, video editors were not a thing. With data science, I mean, I had no idea or didn't even hear of it until uni, and now everyone's talking about AI and machine learning. So I think things will evolve naturally, but I guess what is key is kind of leveraging these technologies as you've mentioned initially, so that you kind of stay ahead and keep learning everything, all the new developments that come up, so you kind of don't fall behind the revolution. So I guess with tech as well, like even I guess with like my grandma, like I have to help her like use her phone and everything. It's always important just to kind of keep learning and keep up to date with the tech that's happening. And even like with software engineers, it's like a running meme online now that software engineers will not have jobs because ChatGPT and tech is taking over. I think, yeah, of course, like roles will evolve, and I think it's just important that people kind of evolve with the tech also. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I went to an event last year, literally where like the person, one of the like, it was a panel speak on like tech, and one of the people there was just literally, as you mentioned, was talking about like how he pays for like the business version of ChatGPT, because he said he wants everyone within his team to use it.
Yeah.
Because as we sort of discussed here, he was just like, it's a resource, it's something that you can use to help make processes quicker. You can use it to find information quicker. You can use it to perfect whatever you're writing, to make things clearer. And he was saying, why would I tell them, like, don't use a tool that could improve your work if it could? And he was just saying, like, yes, there are, like, people, there is a right to be concerned, but I think, as you mentioned, like, it's about that whole evolving with the times, and just being aware that, yes, like, it's most likely AI will be used more often. It'll be used in loads of different industries. But it's also about just remembering that, like, I don't know, in the same way that people were saying when, you know, like we were talking about, like you mentioned about without video creation, there would be no video editors. In the same way when people, I know, like 100 years ago when, like, cars were being built by machine and weren't necessarily being made by, like, people anymore, there was that concern of, oh, we're going to lose, like mechanics and this type of thing because we're having, you know, machines do it. Machines work in factories for cars instead of people. And it's just like, no, those jobs may have reduced, but that doesn't mean that, like, the car can do everything, or like, you know, that industry is lost or like those people's jobs are lost forever. Because as we've seen, like with time and all of this stuff changing, even as you mentioned with like AI, one really interesting thing was this whole idea about like copyright. So how does copyright work within AI? Because you've got because there was this whole discussion of like, oh, well, if you use like an open source that like anyone can see your creations, like for example, if you don't pay for Midjourney, for example, and I know I mentioned Midjourney, you might not know what it is. It's an AI image creator, so you can use it to create like banners, logos, anything. You can just put it in there and it'll create. But people were saying like, oh, with anything you create on Midjourney, how does it work legally? Because technically you put this information in, so it's technically your own thoughts, your own process. But then they were saying, but you used like a generator to use it. And if it's something that you didn't put, like not a personal AI generator you created yourself, it's something that's available to the public. The argument was, what is essentially the balance between the two? But yeah, it was really interesting to see that like legally that's something that people are trying to figure out. For the most part, it's like a gray area, but people have said that if you've created it, it seems like the argument is it's your own intellectual property. But it'll be interesting to see how that conversation changes in the future.
Yeah, no, 100%. I guess outside of AI, probably on tech generally, my friend and I were discussing the other day about driverless cars. So if you get in an accident, who is to blame?
Who's to blame? That's true.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that is very true. Because I think there's this American TV show called The Rookie, and they literally had like an episode of this. So it's about this like police officer, and he basically sees this car, goes past a stop sign, stops the car, and then it's not based on real life. So I will say like, don't worry. Like, but there was a child in the back, and the person, like the police officer sees the child in the back, so he's expecting to see like someone at the front driving the car. It's a driverless car. Their parents work in the tech industry and were just testing out this car, and their daughter was in the back. And then the police officer was generally just like, but who do I write the ticket to? Because I was just like, I could write it to you, but you're a child. And then do I write it to the company? Do I write it to your parents? But if I write it to your parents, legally, as a bit like within the law, he's supposed to write it to whoever is in the car. And he was just like, and then the daughter who was in the car was just like, but why are you giving me the ticket? Because I'm A, underaged, and B, like, I was not driving. It was the car that was driving. And it's just like you mentioned, like, there's going to be this whole discussion on, like, the legal sort of aspects of, like, where these things can go and what can be done with all these things. But one interesting thing I will say is, like you were mentioning, like we were saying before about, like, data and it being accurate and, like, clear and things like that. One thing that YouTube has added is even, like, every time we upload these videos, whether it's YouTube Shorts or YouTube, like, the full videos and stuff like that, it asks us now to say, like, do you have any AI content in your video? So is your video just, like, completely just, I don't know, like, natural, or is it that you've used, like, I don't know, maybe an AI stock image, you've used AI videos, maybe it's a complete AI video, you're not speaking in it, and that's I know we've been talking about AI for, like, a couple of minutes, but I think one, like, final thing to say about it is, as you mentioned about, like, how it can help people, one thing people were saying is that some people have, like, maybe they're really interested in, like, a particular topic, they want to have their own YouTube channel, but they're very conscious of, like, sharing their face or, like, being, like, a face like that. And yes, there are, like, faceless YouTube channels that do really well and it's just someone's voice, but they said for the most part, sometimes people will use, like, AI, I don't know what it's called, but it's like AI videos, but you can have, like, the mouth moving and it will look like you're speaking, or like
just Deepfakes.
Yeah, kind of like Deepfakes. But yeah, they were saying, like, for that, for people who maybe, like, they don't necessarily want to show their face immediately on YouTube, maybe they're concerned about how people will, like, come at them if they're posting stuff on, like, I don't know, like, in general, there are internet trolls, but, like, you're dealing with, like, all of that. So they were saying, like, how do I get into that? And people are saying that the idea of having, like, these AI resources can help people who maybe want to share their story or get involved in, like, online social media stuff, to do it. And they might not necessarily feel comfortable doing it if their own face is shown, but whether it's, like you said, like, through deepfakes, maybe it's through, like, just static AI videos, maybe they're talking about, like, history or, like, I don't know, their favorite TV show or film, and they want to use, like, AI images. And then, yeah, one last thing about that is, even people saying with YouTube, if you there's this really weird law with YouTube in the sense that if you watch, like, if there's something that you don't own, so whether it's, like, I don't know, let's say we were talking about, like, a Marvel film or, like, any film or TV show in general, if you show clips in your video, there's, like, it's really weird, but there's a YouTube channel we watched that talks about, like, how to upload to YouTube and, like, best recommendations stuff. They were saying there's this really weird legal thing that, like, if you show, it's up to the company's discretion, but if you show too much of whatever their content is in the video, they can sort of come at you and challenge your video. And if you don't either pull the video from YouTube or delete the video, you can then get, like, a channel strike against you. And I think after 3 strikes, you then get banned. Your channel's banned from YouTube. So people were saying, even with that, like, having AI stuff means you could, like, I don't know, rather than showing, like, I don't know, like, the James Bond film or, like, a Marvel film, you could use, like, maybe, like, an AI image instead, which you could, like, use. You don't have to pay anyone for it. You don't need to necessarily credit anyone for it or be worried that your YouTube stuff's going to get pulled down. But yeah, you can find ways around it like that. So yeah.
I think it will enable us to do a lot of things that were difficult before, we couldn't do before. But of course, there's always going to be that side where if people use it incorrectly, you can have a lot of damage on
100%.
society. So especially as, like, with deepfakes, there's so many things have come out of that. I think it's going to be interesting how the laws around AI come into place. I think there's always going to be a lag. So unfortunately, it tends to be until something really bad happens, then laws are really implemented and kind of adhered to.
100%.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
No, definitely. But yeah, we're going to go on to the next question, which is all about your experience in NLP. So how do you leverage your experience in NLP to foster diversity and social mobility within the tech sector?
Yeah, so I'm really passionate kind of about diversity and inclusion kind of in the tech space specifically. So I'm really involved in kind of volunteering as a mentor. So things like the Increasing Black Representation program and PwC's diversity mentoring scheme as well. And as opposed to kind of NLP specifically, probably just more about kind of sharing my experiences as a data scientist. And I think one of the key things for me is kind of building confidence in mentees to kind of access those spaces and get into those industries. Because I think that when you see representation in that field, it's definitely encouraging and inspiring. I definitely at the Black Tech Awards and the Everywoman in Tech Awards, it was I don't even know how to explain. It was really, really like a great feeling just to be able to see so many women and so many Black individuals doing amazing things in tech, because day to day I don't really see that many of us. So it's I think just being able to kind of help build other people's confidence and help them kind of get access into the space, whether that's through interview prep, CVs, kind of speaking with different people in that industry, having those connections to get an idea of what career you want to go down. Because at the end of the day, when you see an internship description or just any job description, you don't really know what it is until you, I guess, speak to someone that works in that area, or you've worked in that yourself. So yeah, just being able to kind of give that insight into kind of tech for other students, and then also speaking engagements. So again, another platform just to be able to share your experience, talk to people about what data science actually is, what the different type of roles there are in tech. So even as I mentioned before, until I kind of entered the industry, I didn't know there was a distinction between machine learning engineer, data engineer. And then just kind of knowing what the area is, people can see, okay, I'm interested in this. Is this where machine learning that's what's happening in TikTok, that's what's happening in Instagram, and just seeing that you could actually be a part of those spaces and enter those industries. And one event that really stood out to me was last year. It was EY. It was hosted by EY, the EY Foundation, and that was on overcoming barriers and the future of work for young people. So there. It just kind of spoke about how biases can manifest in AI algorithms and the importance of developing inclusive tech and having a diverse workforce. And we went on to have some really productive conversations around what can be done to kind of help students or just young people in general from low socioeconomic backgrounds to kind of get into those spaces and what barriers they're facing. And I think that was a really good discussion, because the event brought together employers, recruiters, like the real change makers, as well as young people that face those barriers as well. So it felt like it was a really good discussion, because you were able to see from the point of view of employers and recruiters what their perspective on things were, and then also what the barriers young people were facing, and you can kind of talk directly to the change makers. And I think it was a really, really beneficial discussion, especially from my experience. So being someone that came from a low-income background, I just wasn't really aware of any kind of opportunities that were available for kind of someone from like my background. So things like scholarships, internship programs, specifically for people from underrepresented communities, things like mentoring programs as well, until I started mentoring myself. I didn't know that was a thing that was available to students. And what came out of that discussion is that it's often through things like word of mouth. And if you don't know the right people or are in, I guess, the right spaces, then you don't know about these things. So I think that was a really interesting discussion on how and what can be done to kind of improve that and really get access for people, so that people aren't left behind and as we evolve with tech. And then I guess on kind of another angle of things, again, more tech generally, but I've also been doing some volunteering with Arco Academy. So Arco Academy is a school that kind of focuses on creating an inclusive environment and supporting students that are on the verge of exclusion. And what we were doing was I was working as a data engineer for the school. And it was on building a platform that helped with their admission processes just to make things easier and smoother. A lot of their processes currently are quite manual and it takes a lot of time. And by automating it, it just means they're able to focus more time on supporting students, on onboarding new students. So yeah, that was a really nice way to kind of leverage kind of tech experience in a way that is for social good as well.
100%. And yeah, I have the soundboard ready. Hopefully I'm going to press the right thing. Yeah, there's a round of applause because you're doing all this incredible stuff. And I will add, you are, well, I say this like I know, but I know because you did the award. And we'll talk about the Black Tech Founders Award, Achievement Awards in just a moment. But yes, you're doing this 25 or younger, because that was the age requirement on the award. So I don't know your specific age, but still, to be doing this and to be like young, I guess is really impressive to see like all the incredible work that you're doing. And yeah, first off, I guess as a round of applause like hinted at, thank you very much for all the incredible stuff that you do. But I think as well, like you mentioned there, like the importance of like creating these communities. I definitely agree that it's there's a lot of stuff that you like, unless you know someone in that space or in those rooms, you won't know about this information. You won't know about these opportunities. You won't know about like how to, I don't know, like you said, like find a good mentor is tough enough as it is, but to even get a good mentor can sometimes even be tougher. And like having all of that is, having a space where you can find out all this information, you can connect with these people, you can learn, is so important. And that's also part of like the reason why this exists, because we don't want it to be like people feel like, unless I know someone, I can only find out this information, or, I've joked about it before, but like all these people on Instagram that say, we can pay, like, if you join my course or pay, I don't know, like a certain amount of money, then you can have access to like this plethora of knowledge and wealth and stuff. And it's just like, yeah, but not everyone can afford like the prices. So having stuff like this where we can like give people information, we can showcase like individual stuff is also part of the reason why Pick Up the Mic exists as a whole. But yeah, we're going to go on to the next question, which is all about accolades. You've already mentioned some of them today. But yes, you were a finalist for Everywoman in Tech Awards and the Black Tech Achievement Awards for the Young Tech Founder of the Year. That's actually how we met. And essentially, with all these accolades, and as I've said, you're already doing amazing work, so I'm sure there are many more to come. What impact do you hope to make on the next generation of data scientists?
Yeah, so I think, kind of as I mentioned before, I guess just to be able to inspire people and build confidence into getting into these into these industries. I think especially being at the awards ceremonies, it really is inspiring being able to see people that look like you or similar to you in some aspects, and feel that this space is somewhere that I can go as well, and I can achieve things like you have as well. It's definitely it's been really inspiring to me to be able to see so many other people as role models and see that the sky essentially is the limit. Just I guess being able to inspire others, and I think, and again, one of the reasons that I'm really keen on mentoring is just being able to build that confidence. I think, as I mentioned before, like when I did my summer internship before that, I wasn't sure if what the corporate world would be like. It just seemed a bit kind of a big, scary area to me. And kind of after the internship, I was like, I can do this. Like this is. But if I wasn't in that space to begin with, I would have a lot lower confidence, especially applying for graduate roles as well. Just being able to support others, kind of access that space. Yeah, no, I think that's really great. And as I mentioned, like you do incredible work. You're well. It's amazing that you talk about being in these spaces and like the inspiration that you have being there and like being in these rooms and stuff. But also, don't sell yourself short. You're doing incredible work and you're inspiring people through your mentorship, through all these sort of like I said, all the work that you're doing. You're really inspiring like the next generation. So yeah,
I get like I always like have to be careful. But yes, round of applause to you because you're doing incredible stuff. So you should be very proud of yourself.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, we've come to the last question, which you've sort of touched on. If you feel like you've answered it, that's great. We can go on to the next part. But before we hand over to passing the mic, where I let Afiba will be asking me some questions. You talked about mentorship, and I think anyone, whether you're young, old, whatever, you can all agree, both being a mentee and a mentor is a really impactful experience. So, actually, this is going to be a two-part, because I realised I've asked this in one aspect, but I really would like to hear both sort of positions. So, I'm going to ask first as a mentee, and I'm going to ask this question to you. So, as a mentee, what advice would you give to young professionals and students who are eager to explore a career in data science and AI technologies?
Oh, as a mentee, I think just don't be afraid to ask questions or to reach out to people. Even on LinkedIn, just to, if you're looking at a role or an area that you're interested in, reach out to people, chat with them, just find out a bit more about that area, ask questions, be curious. I definitely just don't be afraid to kind of ask people in that area that you're interested in. And also just be open, I guess, to learning and trying out new things.
100%.
And yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then the second one, as a mentor, so what advice would you give? I think it's particularly because I think for some people, especially for like young people, they feel like they have to either be a specific age, maybe have specific accolades, maybe even get a certain level of recognition before they could even be a mentor. So as a mentor yourself, what advice would you give to young professionals and students who maybe they're already maybe at the start of their career, maybe they have a career already in data science and AI technologies, but they were looking to get into mentorship, maybe they're a bit apprehensive about it because they don't feel like they're qualified. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think there's definitely always some experience that you have that others can benefit from. So even with the increasing Black representation program, so I was asked to be a mentor, and at the time I had just begun my graduate role at PwC, so I was like, what can I say? I've been here for like 3 months. But I think throughout that experience, there's actually a lot that you can learn so far, and especially because I had been a student a couple months prior, that kind of I was in their shoes like not that long ago. So I think it was quite good kind of being able to share exactly what I went through, and it wasn't like, and it was quite recent as well. And it was also all during COVID too. So it's definitely a unique circumstance that I had been through too. And I think I realized from that experience, there's definitely a lot more than you realize that you can share that others will benefit from. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think as you sort of like touched on there's like so much, you as an individual, you have a unique perspective, a unique story that others can relate to, and you shouldn't feel like because you don't have, like I said, the years of experience or the qualifications or whatever, that you're not qualified to be a mentor. And that's why things like reverse mentoring do exist. So having newer people in an organization mentor older people in an organization, so to talk about how they're finding things, how they've found working in the company, because there is, as I mentioned before, whether it's to do with you are a founder of a business, or even if you're just a part of an organization and maybe you're like the head of a department or the like deputy director, there is always that tendency that you will envision things differently to how someone who's new to the company is, because I don't know, maybe particularly if you've never worked in that company before and you've like gone in as a deputy director, but B, also if you're not like, I mean, I don't think it's, unless you found a business, it's very rare for like a young person to be like slap bang, like you're going to be a deputy director, or like straight out after your undergraduate, you're given the head of a department position. With stuff like that, it means that when you're having that reverse mentoring, you're having someone who's just come from university, you're sort of getting that like fresh perspective of like, so like what are young people in the organization, or what are the young people maybe within my department, within my team, if you're the deputy director, like within the whole company, like, what are they feeling like? And then once you've had that reverse mentoring, the mentor or the mentee, sorry, who's now sort of like the higher person in the company will be like, wow, like, I didn't realize, like, I don't know, maybe the way we wrote things wasn't in the most accessible way, or, oh, actually, you know, we don't really focus that much on neurodiversity and how people sort of like access our newsletters and things like that. So having that like reverse mentoring is so important because it allows both parties to sort of like benefit from each other's experience.
No, 100%. I think another thing I would add, I guess, for a mentee as well, is definitely personal projects. I think that's something I've really enjoyed as well as learned a lot from. But I think it's a great way, especially if you don't have work experience yet, or even just want to learn about a new area of tech. It's a great way to get experience from that. So just being able to choose a problem that you're interested in, like the Spotify optimization algorithm, that was just for me because that's something that I enjoy. But it can be anything. And from that project, I learned things like clustering, similarity algorithms. And then from the viewer voice one for social listening, I learned about what UI and UX design. That was completely new to me as well. So yeah, I think that's a really great way to gain some experience in an area that you haven't, I guess, had work experience in yet. And it's something you can talk about in interviews. It's also, especially in the world of consulting, where they kind of decide who's being resourced on certain projects and stuff. If, say, for example, there's a project coming up that's on forecasting and you know about it, and you've done a personal forecasting project outside of work, you can say, hey, I have experience in doing this from my forecasting project, and that means you're more likely to get resourced on that project at work. So, yeah.
100% agree. And I think one like thing to even add to that is, as you mentioned, with personal projects, people generally don't think that they can like mention some of this stuff in interviews. And I know when, like you said, like when I went for my first internship, this was the first time working in a professional environment, came to the interview stage, and like our CV and cover letter department at my university, but they were just like, well, just like talk about the stuff that you do. So I was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm an environmental science student. I'm in my second year. I've done projects and like within the course on this, and this. And I said, but also I've got a creative platform that I run that promotes sustainable fashion and sustainable living with young people. And they were just like, oh wow, that's so incredible. Like, and they were asking questions about that. And it's a really nice way for you to stand out as a candidate because like for another role, when I went back for my master's and was doing another placement, because as I always joke, I didn't know what I wanted to do after university, so I stayed there as long as I could. But even with that, when I was going for the interview stage, the CV person that was helping me then was saying like, oh, one key story that he heard a student say was like, they went into an interview and just said like, hi, I'm this, I studied this at university, and then they just dropped like, oh yeah, I was also in a documentary that looked at this. And then he said, when he asked the student about it, he said, yeah, the person turned around and said, like the next 5 minutes were just asking about like, oh, how did you get this opportunity with the documentary? And it was nothing to do with like, oh, maybe they're a film student trying to get into the film. Completely separate industries, but they just dropped that, oh yeah, I was in this documentary that looked at this and spoke about like the information that they shared and all of this. So having those unique like passion projects, whether they do directly link with what you're doing or not, is really cool. So even like if I go to jobs now, like regardless of whether the job is to do with like business and entrepreneurship, I always do drop, yes, I also run a business that supports young people with their development, because I say, well, actually, this is like a unique thing that I do, and it's a unique thing in the interview. And I've always heard like from feedback that I've received from people that have interviewed me, from feedback from other people who've done similar things. Like everyone says that you stand out as a candidate because now you're not just another university graduate that studied a degree. Maybe you did certain cool things for your dissertation. You're like, no, actually, you're a university student who does this, or you're a university graduate who does this, you're a young person who's passionate about this. And I say particularly like if it is generally not related to your like career path or wherever your like vision is, it's so cool because they're just like, oh wow, you're like this person that does this. So I always say like in interviews, definitely share the stuff that you do and take on, like you said, take on those personal projects because they're really cool. But yeah, when I come to passing the mic, so we're not physically passing the mic, but we're sort of like swapping roles. So Afiba has got some questions she's going to ask me. I want to hand over to you. Ask away. Any questions that you want, whether it's on the business, personal stuff, whatever you want to ask, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I guess since we've spoken a little bit about mentorship, have you had any mentors or mentored other people, and what's the experience been like with that?
Very good question. So I'm in the process of getting. I think she's my mentor. It's not confirmed yet.
Sure
We're not for sure yet. But so I do have someone that's like directly mentored me with more the business aspects of stuff that we do to pick up the mic. And that was again not something that like I've known this person for ages. It was literally, as you said, like putting yourself out there. So she was hosting a panel discussion at an event. I just spoke to her. Funnily enough, I interviewed her as a part of this podcast specifically, and we just had a conversation. And I was so yeah, when we went to the interview, like when I went to interview her the first time, it was one of those things where like if you're traveling anywhere in London, if there's a tube strike or like if there's delays, you're never going to get anywhere on time. So I apologized and said I'm running late and all of this stuff. And then we rescheduled, and it was funny. The podcast recording. So she like took time from work to be interviewed. So it was booked only to be for like I think maybe 2 hours. We ended up going for about like maybe like 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Because the first maybe like first hour, maybe hour and a half was solely just on, she was just asking me questions on like, okay, so how did the business start? What are your plans for the future? This and that, like all these questions. And it was after like this whole discussion, I was just like, yeah, like, thank you for actually like taking the time out to do this. I really appreciate it. And I said like, I would love for you to be my mentor because there's so much like insight that you've got, that you give, that you share. And I feel like to have you as a mentor would be really important and really impactful. And yeah, she does like a lot of cool stuff, but one of the key things that she is like an angel investor.
Okay.
And that is something that I would love to be at some point with, just like if people have a business and maybe they just need a bit more money to get it started, I would love to be able to invest in their businesses. So I literally just asked her like, hey, do you want to be a mentor? It's... We've both been super busy, so we haven't actually like gone back to that circle. But it looks like it's confirmed. So technically, I do have a mentor in the business aspect. But I would say I don't see this person. So the first person I would say was technically my mentor, but has now moved to that to be more of like because also she's very close with like my family. People used to joke when I would work for her. She was like my work mum. So I did a summer placement, and then after my summer placement, went straight into a year one because, again, clearly I wanted to extend my time at university. So my year one was completely different to my degree. It was working with young people to encourage them to get into the field of STEM and like sharing STEM knowledge, sharing like different degrees, even talking about my degree and what it does. And we would do workshops on robotics, engineering, like you said, like maths. So people would come up with like maths workshop. And it was really fun because it was less of like, oh, we're going to sit like, I don't know, secondary school and primary school children down to like hear a long talk about it. It was more of like, oh, we're actually going to like have you, I don't know, work to solve out an issue or a problem. Nice. So like one of the ones we would do is there are these like cool robots that are color coded at the bottom. So it's really interesting, particularly like with primary school children, because I don't know if I would have figured it out, but they're really smart with, and like, I'm not even saying like, oh, you know, year 6, they're about to go to secondary school. We would do it with even, I think one time we did it with reception students where we gave them this map and said, okay, cool. So you start off with an easy map of telling them how it works. So the robot follows black lines. And then when it sees like blue, black, red or green, based on like the color, order of the colors, it will then follow an instruction. So it might see it and then and coding wise, it will tell it to like go really fast or go really slow or go left or right at the next junction. So you give them an easy map to just tell them like lefts, rights and go straight. And then you give them another map, which is a bit bigger, and you tell them they need to go from like steps 1 to 4 and like go to these 4 stops and they can't cross the same line twice. Okay. So it's really interesting because you'll see them like be like, oh, well, we could go this way and this way and this way, this way. And then you're just like, but remember, you can't cross the same line twice. So you have to be aware of like, if you commit to one route, you have to go around the you have to figure it out. A lot of them then figure out that part. And then the cool thing that we do at the end is we say, okay, cool. We're now going to give it, and we always give out sweets for whoever gets like first, second, or third. But because basically if you don't give young people
motivation.
Exactly. They won't do it. But then what we did was we would say, okay, here, so you've got numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. How can you make the process faster? So we said, we're going to time you, and you have to figure out a way to make to get from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 in the fastest way possible. Yeah. And that's the only rule. And it's interesting because when you give people that task, some of them are just like, oh, we need to put like turbo on. We need to like, you know, put boosters on so we can make it go really fast. But then they'll realize that actually when you do that, the robot, when it reaches a junction, won't go left or right like it did before because the color's different. So the trick, and I'm hoping that they don't watch this, so my old manager doesn't come for me and say that I've now spoiled that workshop. But the trick is you basically encourage them to think outside the box. So you just keep repeating to them, the only rule is it needs to go past numbers 1 to 4. And actually, I might flip the. I know I'm supposed to be being interviewed this part, but I want to see if you can get it.
Oh no.
Only thing is the robot has to move from numbers 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, but that's the only rule. And bear in mind, it can follow black lines. It just needs to move. Like you can't rip off the pieces of paper and Yeah, I think I've hinted at something with ripping it off the pieces of paper, but just remember, it can't go. The robot has to move itself. You can't like just drag it across the 4 numbers. The robot needs to move itself. It can follow black lines, and it just needs to go past the 4 numbers.
Oh, you can draw your line.
You can draw black lines. There's a way to make it go even quicker.
Oh.
Yeah.
Even quicker.
Yeah, even quicker.
Wait, there's different. Oh, there's colours for the lines that make it faster.
So there are, but there's an even quicker way. I'll give you one more chance. Just think about it. You can think out. Remember, the robot just needs to move itself. So what could you do, bearing in mind that like you've got the robot, maybe, you know, as I mentioned, you could maybe move stuff around. Remember, because the way you get it quicker is to reduce the space between the numbers. So what's something?
Draw numbers. Okay, you like to do that?
Yeah. Okay. So one way that people do it is they draw the numbers and put like. So sometimes people do it smart. So they'll draw like 1, 2, 3, and 4 like next to each other and just literally tell the robot to go. And then as soon as it goes past those 4 numbers, technically it's done it. The other cheat way that people do it, which we try to avoid because technically people drop the robots when they do this.
Oh, okay.
Is you literally just have the piece of paper, you squish all the numbers together, or in some people's case, they would rip the numbers off, and then they would just drop it because technically the robot's moving by itself. It's moving because of gravity. You're not moving the robot.
Okay.
And then when you drop it, as long as it goes past the numbers, it's then done. The funny thing is you'll just see all of them just like think about like different ways that they can make it quicker. So yeah, usually most of them pick up on like, oh, I can draw my own lines. But then the big difficulty is how do you tell the robot to like, with the new lines you've drawn, how do you control it? But yeah, my old manager there, like being in that role and like the opportunity she gave me, so like letting me do my own event while I was on that placement, working on my own workshop, like meeting all these like cool people, not only within the team, but like within the schools that we were working with, was so cool because it was just great to see all these young people like just think like creatively and think outside the box. And yeah, even like there were ways that people found the robots to go even faster, or like ways to cheat the system and stuff like that. That I don't know, like we didn't tell them this; they just heard what we were saying and interpreted it that way. That you're just like, wow, this is really fun work. But yeah, so both of them have mentored me. I'm in the process of looking to actually be a mentor because I would love to. Again, I'm looking for a mentor. Hit me up. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like advice that I give people, both with like the video creation stuff that I do. People ask me like because I need to get back to it. Fingers crossed, I will be doing it soon. But like I do like public speaking or like hosting and stuff like that. People ask me like, how do you feel confident to come on stage and like do this stuff? And I tell people like, I'm not most of the time. Like I will still be nervous. I will still be like looking at my notes or concerned about stuff. Even people like with the podcasting, like, oh, how do you do that? Because you must have like years of podcasting experience. I tell people, none of us on the team ever knew how to do a podcast before we started. So yeah, I would say I would love to do mentoring because I feel like there's a lot of advice, like what you were saying about like knowledge that you gain and you get that I'd love to share with others as well. So yeah.
Nice. And what's been, I guess, the most impactful thing, I guess, whether you either a mentor or just anyone that you've like spoken with has said to you that's really kind of stuck with you?
Oh, so there's two. So there's the person that, again, like, I don't want to say a name, so I'm singling her out, so then people can then message her and say, "Oh, you Jeffrey's mentor or not?" But there's a person that I believe is my mentor. She, in the podcast episode that we did together, said something about that essentially people think when it comes to like talent versus obsession, that talent is more important than obsession. But she was saying, no, obsession beats talent every time. So in the sense that when you are very passionate about what you're doing and you're actively working and you're not letting whether you get funding for your business or awards or any of that stuff like influence your dream and your vision and where you see the work that you're doing go. She was just like, that will always beat talent because it shows people that, even if you are like naturally gifted at like, I don't know, like you said, like data management or managing data or podcasting or public speaking, like if you are showing that you're actively engaging and you're learning and developing your craft, that to people will just show that you're so passionate about what you do that will beat talent anytime. So that was one key thing. Another key thing was what my old manager shared with me, which was through essentially when I was, so this time last year, funnily enough, like I told my manager, like, hey, I want to do a speech at graduation at some point. I was like, I don't know if this is something that could happen. And she was just like, let's look. She investigated. She found out a way for me to do it. It was really great. I was able to do the speech at my graduation. So when I was told, like, yep, you've been given the opportunity, like, congrats. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And as soon as it happened, I went and told her and I was like, because I was on campus and I said, let me just let her know. And I told her, she was just like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to keep it secret. She was like, we're not going to tell your family, you're not going to tell your friends, you're not going to tell like anyone. We're going to just work on this, make sure that your speech is like perfect. And then on the day, we're going to let everyone know. So the lesson that I learned from that is that sometimes when you get given like opportunities, you don't always need to share and like be that person. Because I know sometimes people do get afraid of that. Like that's why they don't like LinkedIn, because they think LinkedIn's literally just like, oh yeah, I'm like this smart, successful person and I do all these cool things. But one key thing she showed me was that like you don't need to like actively, like even when you get these opportunities, maybe you get like a cool partnership or you get to, I don't know, interview this amazing person. You don't need to like in the moment that you get it, share it immediately or like put it out for social media to even know. Sometimes there's something even more impactful about just when letting it come out when it should come out. Because I look back on it and like I said, I didn't tell my family, I didn't tell my friends. I always joke that my mum saw me collect my certificate and then she saw me coming back to the stage and she told my sister and like my dad, like, what is he doing? Why is he going back on stage? What's going on? My sister was just like, oh, maybe there's like an award he's won and they told him to go back on stage and I don't know what's really going on. And then it was just funny to me because I couldn't even see them in the crowd, but I just like joked about in the speech to my, like I said, my friends, my family didn't know about this. This has been really a hard secret to keep. My dad, even on the day of my graduation, like saw me reading my speech. And I just joked that it's just like something to do with work. So he wouldn't think that I was doing the speech. But yeah, sometimes about like just waiting, like not in, I guess I'm trying to word this in the right way. With social media, there's not always a need to rush to share things. Sometimes waiting until like things have like come to fruition or things are happening is like a really cool thing to share, because people will be like, I guess you can share it in the moment or like as soon as you've got it. And then, I don't know, sometimes it feels like even as an individual, you might feel like, oh, I've done this, but now I need to like find the next thing I need to share so it can have the same impact. But there's something about like when it's happening in the moment or in fruition and no one knows about this, no one knows what's going on. And then you turn around and you're just like, boom. Like, hey, this happened.
And this is quite nice because you can kind of work on that without feeling any pressure or expectations from other people as well.
Yeah, and it's so true. And like, you're not, and I think that's sometimes can be like such a big like factor on like, oh, whether you'll get, like you said about like personal projects, if you tell everyone, oh, I don't know, literally as you mentioned, like maybe if you had like actively shared on like LinkedIn and stuff that you were doing the like Spotify optimization, maybe you would have felt as though, oh, actually, you know, people are going to expect me to like now showcase all this stuff. And if things aren't working, people are going to then comment and be like, oh, actually, based on your code, like your coding, like this isn't good or this isn't that. But like sometimes, like you said, like having that as a project and then doing it and then it's done, you've like made it work, it's working like to the best, like it's working really well. Sometimes having it like that is so much nicer because there's no external pressure. You're the only one that knows, or like a small group of people know that you're doing this. And it's just like, for you as an individual, it's just a lot more chill. So yeah.
Nice.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions that you want to ask?
No.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, that's perfect. That now means we can go on to essentially our MC of the month. So you guys will know, MCs of the month, organizational, individual, relevant to the discussion we're talking about today. They could be maybe doing interesting work in the field that we're discussing. They could be an organization that you could check out to maybe support you in your journey, to facilitate all loads of different things. And I think a key, based on basically this whole conversation about like tech and sharing both of our experiences within the world of tech, but also because of essentially the way that we both found out about each other was through this, I think it's important to talk about the Black Tech Achievement Awards. So for any of you listening, whether you are in the UK or maybe you are in the US, there is the Black Tech Achievement Awards, and essentially it's like a yearly competition that individuals can apply. You can apply for yourself. It can be hosted by other people can apply on your behalf, so they could submit an application based on the work that you do, and essentially it's a recognition of the incredible work that individuals are doing within the tech industry. So celebrating essentially Black role models and Black innovators in the tech field. There's loads of different, I won't go through all of them because there are quite a few, but there are loads of different awards. There's the Social Good Award, the Rising Star Award, Entrepreneur of the Year, FinTech of the Year, Innovation Champion, as well as like many more to date. So you can check out their website. It's the btaawards.com. I mentioned the US because they also have a US award, and it opens like every year. So you can pre-register on their website right now to sort of have a pre-registration. So when the applications for 2025 open, you can put an application in. You can apply for like loads of different awards. But even as Afiba mentioned, like being in the room there was like really great because one, like the funny thing with stuff like this, like the podcasting, or even like having like a platform where you connect with people like on LinkedIn, is there were so many people that I'd seen at other events, or like maybe I'd even interviewed them on the podcast that I then saw in the room, and I was just like, I had no idea you were coming here. Like, wow, that's incredible. Or like I would see, you know, even on the nomination list, I was just like, oh my days, you've been nominated. Like, congrats. Like, I wish you all the best. So it is also great for that because you're not only like having all these like great, you know, celebrating all these like great individuals that are doing great work, but you're also seeing like faces that you've like seen like over the last year, and you're saying, wow, you know, I remember when you started your business and you're now like doing this, or oh, I remember when you started this program and now you're doing this. So I think definitely like one of the key things for me was just literally seeing all these cool individuals like doing amazing work, and yeah, just seeing all these like familiar faces that, yeah, whether I'd met through other events, whether I, you know, got in touch with them through just being on Pick Up the Mic, whether they were even on Pick Up the Mic, to just see them was like really cool and really impactful. So yeah, they are our MC of the month. But yeah, we've now come to the end of the episode. We've come to the takeaway section actually. And this, we're still looking, again, putting out a call out, Deliveroo, Just Eat, any takeaway app, hit me up. But yeah, we come to the takeaway section, which is not where we bring you food, but instead we leave you with an impactful message to take home with you today. So Afiba, you've talked about amazing stuff. You've spoken about your own journey in tech. You've spoken about the incredible work you've done as a mentor. You've spoken about how mentorship has helped you. You've spoken about how you're inspiring the next generation of data scientists. You've spoken about a lot. So it might be hard to do it as just one thing, but we're going to try. So if you had to summarize everything we've spoken about into maybe one sentence or like a few words, what would be the takeaway message you would like our audience to go home with?
I would say not to be afraid to get into tech industry. There are lots of different roles in tech. There's there's obviously very technical roles. There's roles that aren't as technical but support technical roles. So there's something for everyone if you're interested. So don't be afraid of that industry, and just be open to learning new things. Yeah.
Oh, it's really powerful, and I definitely agree. And as you mentioned, through your internship, through all the incredible work that you've done, through all the projects that you've done, you've shown the importance of just putting your foot through the door and trying something new. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. And let us know in the comments. If you try anything new based on this episode, maybe you want to get into the tech industry and you've tried like a passion project, maybe you're going to be a bit braver than me and try out R. Let us know. If you can use R and you do really well, it would be great to hear because, I remember.
I would recommend Python.
Yeah, honestly, do Python. Because, the flashbacks on R. We've come to the end of today's episode. And thank you, Afiba, for coming on. It's been great to speak to you and hear the incredible stuff that you do. As always, we like to let our guest speakers, if you've got any cool projects or anything you want to share, feel free. But also, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, maybe they want to learn more about the work that you do. Maybe they want to even get in touch with you about the work that you do. Maybe they even just want to ask you to be a mentor. And they're looking to see if you're taking on mentees. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, so Afiba Annor. Feel free. Any questions, if you want to learn anything about data science, feel free to message me. More than happy to have a chat and do some mentoring too. So yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And thank you to you, our wonderful audience, for coming back for another episode of The Student Guide. If you like this episode, like, comment, subscribe is always appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any other episodes of The Student Guide, because we will be back in full swing very shortly. If you don't want to miss any more episodes of The Student Guide, if you also want to keep an eye out for the other episodes under the Pick Up the Mic YouTube channel, please make sure you click the notification bell at the bottom of the video. If you're interested in receiving some perks, yes, I've been promising it. Yes, I'm still working on it. I will get the merch out shortly. It has taken some time, people, but I'm working on it. So if you want to be the first one to get merch, please make sure that you are either one of our YouTube channel members, which you can find in the link below, but maybe you don't know about YouTube channel membership. You can check out our Patreon page. We promise it's not super expensive. It is just so we can continue to, one, give you cool stuff like this, but also two, we can use it to create cool merch and cool content for you as well. Do check out our Patreon page, also link down below. And finally, if you are interested in learning about some of our other YouTube channels, maybe Afiba, you want to be on some of these channels as well, you're more than welcome to. So I'll go through all of them. In case you don't know, we've got the Two Maces channel that looks at the world of sci-fi and fantasy and dives into these discussions and topics each week. They've taken a bit of a break because, as you may have seen with us, we have pre-recorded a lot of stuff because our recording space was closed, but we're back, so we're going to be recording more stuff, and the Two Maces will be back. They're going to be finishing off the Shogun, the TV show on Disney Plus, but then they're going to be diving into the world of Fallout. They're going to talk about The Boys season 4, Deadpool and Wolverine. So you've got a lot to look forward to for the Two Maces, so make sure you check out them. If you're interested in the world of gaming and exploring not only different games, but also discussing things like the importance of diversity and inclusion within the world of gaming, check out Pick Up the Controller, where we interview we're looking to do interview gaming studios or people who work within the gaming industry, but also we're looking to interview just game enthusiasts like us who are interested in just talking about games. We know we did it last Christmas. We're going to hopefully be doing a bit more live streaming or doing a bit more like gameplay stuff. Helldivers 2 is a big game, so we might be doing that. So check out that channel. And finally, if you're interested in the world of anime, maybe you're an anime enthusiast like myself, we're going to be at Comic-Con doing interviews on Saturday for an event, and we'll be doing a post about that shortly, so keep an eye out. But if you're interested in the world of anime, you want to know about the cool anime events that are happening in London, maybe you want to know how you can connect with other anime enthusiasts, check out Senseis of Anime. And I will promise here, so I can say it, and then I'm recorded saying it so people can come for me if I didn't. We will have t-shirts for all 3 channels, as well as all 4 channels, as well as an overall, has all the logos channels. You might have seen me wearing it, and I'll put a picture of what it looks like, or what it could look like. We'll have t-shirts for the singular channels. We've got one for the Senseis of Anime channel, which is why I'm bringing it up here. So if you do want to get it, once the shop is active and live, do check it out. That's it on the Student Guide. I've been talking for ages, so I'm going to stop. We're going to close the Student Guide here. thanks for coming for this episode. We'll see you the next time we open another chapter of the Student Guide with another amazing guest. But that's bye from us here. Have a wonderful day, and we will speak to you soon.